Hello and welcome to 100% Real with Ruby. Today I have Michelle Carroll on and I share so many of her posts to friends, to clients, because she says the stuff that she says it in a way that I personally resonate with in terms of I struggled with this once in the past, or my clients have struggled with this, but I resonate with it as a coach because I feel like the industry is either one extreme or the other, where it's all about body image or it's all about physique. I feel like Michelle kind of marries the two, but she explains how focusing so much on the end outcome, on the physique that you want, on being so body image focused and body focused can be the very thing, which, as you know, I always say, focusing on the outcome doesn't get you the outcome, but it could actually be the thing that's sabotaging you from getting close to the outcome. And we were talking before about what she loves about Scotland, because she lives in Scotland. And the way she spoke about it was like, I'm filling my cup. Like, these are the amazing things around me. And so often we are so focused on just our body, on the physique aspects, on body change, on exercise, on what macros do I have to eat today? What do I have to cut out because of XYZ? But we're not actually enjoying the life we're living. We're not actually experiencing the process that we're going through. And that is what this is all supposed to be about, right? So with that, here's Michelle. I'm going to let her kind of introduce what she's most passionate about and take what I just said to come to some sort of introduction to this.
So I don't know how I'll be able to do that, but my name is Michelle. Obviously, as the accent would suggest, I'm Irish, but I live in Scotland. I am currently doing my PhD at the University of Edinburgh. My PhD is in psychology, and it's looking at disordered eating and body image in the fitness industry, because that's something I think that I'm just so incredibly passionate about. And I spend most of my time either working on my PhD or working with clients and educating coaches about body image and relationship with food, because I feel like that's something that we don't discuss enough. Like you were saying, Ruby, we tend to focus a lot on outcomes, be that getting as lean as possible or the process of getting as lean as possible. We don't ever, I feel, think about enough what it is that we're actually engaging in these behaviors for. So is it, I want to be lean because that's the only way I can be confident? Or is it, I want to change my body because that will make me more comfortable in my body? But I also know that my body isn't just what I look like. So by trying to change it is no guarantee that I'll suddenly feel confident, because we know that that's not what body confidence is. So I suppose the goal of the work that I do, be that in academia or in terms of working with coaches or clients, is just to encourage people to think beyond what we are so conditioned to think, or the way we're so conditioned to think by the fitness industry, which is that aesthetics is everything and you should only ever do health-seeking behaviors or engage in health-seeking behaviors like exercising or eating well because you look a certain way, and if you don't look a certain way, that kind of means you decrease in value as a person. So that's kind of my overarching mission, I suppose, is to encourage people to think about body image beyond how that impacts how you look.
I want to try to come at this from a client's perspective so that a lot of people in here can resonate with it, because aesthetics and looks are all around us. Like, we see physiques online, and most of what we see is what we talk about the most, what we look up the most. And if we're so focused on our body image, then we're going to see a lot of comp prep competitors, a lot of lean people and fit people, and we're surrounded by all of this. How is it even possible to not have this as a focus? How is it even possible to not focus on how we feel within our bodies when we're trying to break away from this dieting mentality? Something I'm huge on is getting people to stop focusing on fat loss 24/7, 365, and to get them focusing on, for me, it's get them to focus on performance, something that grows you, that empowers you, that gives you something to chase, that builds your life up versus shrinking it. And by having this drive, this focus that isn't about how little you can eat or how much you don't like this part of your body, you'll stop self-sabotaging. You'll stop doing all the things that keep you where you are now. And in turn, you will get to where you want to be. But this mindset element, your philosophy or your way of thinking about your goals, your journey, your transformation, it can either be helpful or a hindrance. So maybe you can bring your line of work into that, and how in this world that is so fixated on our bodies. I mean, like, what else is there to focus on? How else can we get through this? And the fear that I see a lot is, but I don't want to go back to where I was before. I don't want to gain that weight back. I don't want to get myself too loose or too safe or feel like I let myself go.
Yeah, and that's something I think that comes up with a lot of people, because again, there is a lot of misconception about what body image actually is. Like, a lot of people assume that body image is just about what you look like, and I don't want to work on my body image because I do care about what I look like, and that's actually not what body image is. So body image does encompass what you look like, but it also encompasses how you feel about your body and what your body allows you to do in terms of not just look a certain way, but in terms of all of the functions that your body does. So the goal of working on your body image isn't to say you can never care about appearance again. That's absolutely not the case. And caring about your appearance can be a part of body image work, but it's not the only reason why you work on your body image, and it's not the only goal of body image work. The goal is to basically decrease the importance that aesthetics plays in your life and in your behaviors. So you're carrying out health-seeking behaviors. So you're eating well, you're training, you're going for walks, getting movement in, respecting your body, not because you're trying to lose weight, but because you are a person that deserves respect, and you deserve a life that is of good quality and a life that serves you. And for most people, a life that's entirely centered around fat loss does not sustain you or does not get you to a life that you want, a life that's in alignment with your values. So, for example, if you're a person that's like, right, I value spending time with my family, or I value being present, having energy in my day-to-day life, fat loss or deliberately seeking fat loss through dieting, extreme dieting, is probably not the best way for you to get there, because extreme dieting or chronic dieting requires you to restrict a lot of foods, basically gear your life around training and exercise. And as a result, then you have no energy to carry out the very things that you think this deliberately chasing extreme fat loss will give you, or trying to chase fat loss as quickly as possible. So it's not about saying that you can't ever change your body or you can't engage in behaviors because of how they impact your appearance, but that only becomes a part of the reason why you do things. You are more motivated to change your behaviors for reasons beyond looking a certain way, because we know that bodies will change over time regardless of what you do. You can't ever go back to your old body, be that in a positive way or a negative way. So rather than trying to fight this comparison to your old self or be so worried about never being able to go back there, it's about accepting that you will never be able to go back to your old body. And that's not necessarily a good or a bad thing. It's just a fact. So you may as well focus on what's in front of you, because you can control that, but you can't turn back time and control your old body in the present.
Yeah. And you can't control your body by focusing on your body, because like that's just like that study where it's like they dream about lifting weights, and then they saw like the EMG, which is something that kind of signals muscle contraction, muscle activation. It lit up from just imagining doing bicep curls. But just doing bicep curls, although you might see the EMG going off and it looks productive, which I'll get to for the fat loss link, it looks productive, but do that over time, your bicep ain't gonna grow. But if you then relate that to fat loss, it's like you can focus on the body all that you want. You can focus on fat loss all that you want, because it feels productive. You're doing something, you're chasing something. You might see quick results, and then you get caught up in the dopamine. It's kind of like that stupid ex-boyfriend where it's just like you keep going back for more, but you're forgetting all the negative stuff. And that's the same with the fat loss phase. It's like you can keep wishing this stuff to happen, but you're not going to get the end outcome that you want by wishing it to happen. You need to focus on the actions that get you there. And this body image work, I always say body image does not discriminate. I had the worst body image, and it got even worse when I did my comp preps. Like, yeah, I felt proud of it in that moment, but it was like stringent. I think that's the word. It was all dependent on the fact that I was at that leanness. As soon as I wasn't on that stage, I was, okay, I'm pursuing this next this next bulk, as I called it, which I hate calling it now, and then going into a cut. So then I can look even better for the next stage. It was all dependent on these dates. But I think this is what I want to see your opinion on and where you would go from this. I feel like this is why a lot of people don't feel they have body image issues, because they're so busy chasing things. And I don't even know how to describe it, but it's like there's this thing that just stops them from realizing that this isn't the answer. The answer is over here, because the answer is pro-life, not something that everything revolves around what you eat, what you do, but it doesn't mean that your body physique is going to deteriorate. Because I was extremely lean. Imagine someone on stage being stage lean just 1 week after. You can imagine that 1 week after, they're not going to look like an elephant. Yet that is exactly how I felt. And that is exactly what I complained about, feeling like and looking like. Yet I didn't resemble that. But I didn't see it with my own eyes. And I feel like this is where a lot of people get stuck, because you do not see yourself as you are. So why do you feel like there is such dissonance here?
Well, I think that's because, again, like you said, body image doesn't discriminate based on size, but we are taught to discriminate based on size. So most people have a high level of internalized weight bias where we feel like any sense of gaining weight or increasing body size is this kind of worst thing in the world. It's incredibly problematic. And the fitness industry is probably one of the industries that has the highest amounts of weight bias. So this is like complete devaluation of an individual based on their size or weight, where we are taught that the worst thing you can do is this, like, quote unquote, letting yourself go. So rather than consider about what people gain when they gain weight or work on their behaviors for something other than appearance, that's seen as shameful. And a lot of people that in the kind of anti-diet space will often get these kind of hate comments saying that you're glorifying obesity, or like, I want to start doing what you're doing, but I'm terrified of gaining weight. And that is because most people probably have a high level of internalized weight bias, where it's not even necessarily like this idea that you're glorifying obesity or anything like that, but it is about putting your health before anything else, before any other diet. And we cannot look at our body, especially like you were saying, how you struggled with some of the worst body image when you were at your leanest. And I was the same when I did, or it was before my photo shoot prep, I think, where I just had terrible body image. And again, objectively, you would look at me and say, oh, this woman fits the ideal body. So I didn't get any hate comments online. But it was the worst that I felt about my body, because body image isn't just about objectively what you look like. And when you struggle with negative body image, most people cannot objectively look at their bodies and evaluate that in terms of an objective way. But also, I find it very interesting that we're always looking or evaluating our body as to whether it is this kind of good or bad body, when it is kind of just a body. And rather going off how we are feeling in terms of how we view our body image and our health as a whole, we tend to view it under the lens of, well, I look lean, so therefore I must be healthy.
Yeah, and you just mentioned something there with how we're feeling, and I feel like that is a huge thing. You will always have some form of ick inside of your body when something in your life is not in place, when you feel out of control of something, or when you're when you feel out of control of something, or when you're in a different environment, when chaos happens, you tend to internalize that. When you can't control your food anymore, or when your habits start to slip, that is when your body image worsens. When you didn't follow through on your word, that is when your body image worsens, or you beat yourself up over something and all of a sudden your body becomes the target. And I also want to clarify that this does not mean that you're going to look like those people online that symbolize that they're letting go and embracing obesity. Their body reflects their habits, their mindset. You can have both, but you cannot be happy in any body that you create unless you bring that mindset with you. You can still have the same self-sabotage. There are probably so many women online that look, quote unquote, the part, that are stuck with emotional eating and all these other things. And I know you put up a post about fitness professionals looking the part and still having so many of these different issues on the side. And it is like, it's only now that I'm on the other side of what I went through that I can see in between the lines of some things that people say. And I'm like, that looks, I'm sure you see it as well, where people are saying things and it's like, that isn't a healthy mindset. That looks like it's great to the average person. But when you've been there before, you can see the red flags. So I guess this kind of, I want to fit this into the whole, I'm feeling flat, I'm feeling fat, I'm feeling fluffy, and how your relationship with food is actually reflective of you.
So this idea of feeling fat, I think there's kind of a lot of discourse online between like the pro-diet and the anti-diet space, whereby within the pro-diet space, everyone will say, well, if you're feeling fat, you can use that as motivation for shame. And then in terms of people that don't really understand, I think, how this concept of feeling fat works, and kind of the anti-diet space will say, well, fat isn't a feeling, so just get over it. And if we actually look into the research, this idea of feeling fat is actually a concept that's well defined in literature. So this definition of feeling fat is kind of this somatic sensation of being overweight. So whether you are overweight or not doesn't actually matter, but it is this internalized belief that you have that you are overweight. And again, if we have high levels of internalized weight bias, again, this can lead to us panicking and it being the worst thing in the world. So it's not something that we can just dismiss by simply saying, well, fat isn't a feeling, because this concept of feeling fat is actually a defined feeling in literature. And also for someone that's struggling with feeling fat, to just dismiss their concerns by saying fat isn't a feeling won't actually help them challenge this behavior, because straight away you've just basically gaslight them into telling them that their problems are all in their head because fat isn't a feeling. So one of the ways to challenge that, so there's kind of two ways that I like to look at it. So you need your in the moment strategies, because again, the work that you can do outside of this in terms of, so you have your in the moment strategies and you have your longer term strategies. If you look at the longer term strategies, so again, this is working on your body image, questioning why you feel that being fat or gaining weight or your body changing is something that's so inherently problematic and something that you need to immediately panic about. You can work on body functionality. So again, this is starting to appreciate your body beyond what it looks like and what it allows you to do, and start to challenge the beliefs that you have about your body weight and shape. And these are all behaviors that you can work on in the longer term outside of in the moment, because in the moment, when you're very overwhelmed by this feeling of feeling fat or feeling very uncomfortable in your body, and again, someone tells you just to be grateful for all that your body allows you to do, is absolutely the worst, so unhelpful and likely to lead to people disengaging. So you need in the moment strategies to challenge that as well. So if you're someone that normally feels really fat or feels really uncomfortable in your body, and you can get so overwhelmed that you are likely to binge or overeat or, engage in kind of destructive behaviors or negative self-talk, building these in the moment strategies can be really, really helpful. So again, this can be, maybe it's simply recognizing that you feel this way or that you're starting to feel fat and kind of having a little mantra for yourself. So something that I like to kind of repeat to myself when I kind of catch myself speaking negatively about my body or not feeling great in it in the moment is, nothing I think about my body is true at this moment, because again, we can start to attach all these beliefs onto things. So it's just a little pause that that you're not necessarily in the most balanced frame of mind to be making judgments or believing them. And then it can be things like practicing breath work, listening to music, going for a walk. And the goal isn't, or the idea behind this isn't, oh, well, I'll just listen to music and just never think about these thoughts again. Not at all. It's about developing in the moment strategies to get you through the moment so that you can engage in these long-term behaviors that promote positive body image, so that these moments are less likely to occur and less severe when they happen. And I think that's something that's really, really important to clarify, that anyone can feel fat, anyone can feel uncomfortable in their body, regardless of their body composition. And it doesn't mean, again, that you have let yourself go or that there is anything to be quote unquote worried about, unless this sensation of feeling fat is taking over your life, or it's happening far too often in a way that is impacting on your quality of life.
Yeah, and it can be hard to feel good in your body when you don't like how you look as well. So it is really important to gain that awareness and try to figure out. I always say that emotional eating isn't really helpful to you or to anyone else because you don't know what that emotion is. But dismissing awareness as something that isn't important or a win or a progress step, because sometimes just being aware and building, like getting more competent at building awareness is the best step forward, because until you build that awareness, you can't address the emotion. For example, catching yourself doing a habit that you want to stop doing. You could beat yourself up that you just caught yourself doing the habit, or you can start celebrating the fact that you're starting to catch yourself now and then make the next best step, because you still have that chance to end whatever that bad habit is, whatever happens in the next few minutes, with a positive thought, a positive action that can then start to build forward. And that competence is what builds the confidence, is what allows you to keep on going. And I've been trying to figure this out because someone challenged me on this before when I was saying I just focused on performance. That's what got me over my hurdle of feeling the way that I felt. But that was honestly what I did. And I can't even think about how I got over it. Like, I honestly can't. But something you said there kind of hit with it, where you're still focusing on habits that cultivate a positive body image, focusing on something that can grow you, that can get you excited. I have a client right now who is fired the hell up about focusing on a performance that it's helping her quiet in her words, there's still the voice in my head, but it's quieter now and I'm telling it to stop talking so loudly. And that's the thing, like it's still going to be there, but it's hard to hush it up when what you're focusing on isn't something aligned to your values or something that is aligned to what you truly want in life. And I feel like I have a feeling you agree because most people agree with us. Most people don't know what they want. They only know what they want to escape from. And that has a lot to do with the sabotage that a lot of people can create as well. So I guess this also feeds into how your relationship with food is actually reflective of you. Why do clients overeat? Why do they emotionally eat? How can you challenge it and create a helpful framework for it to help them get through it?
So I think as well, I think it's important to clarify that we were talking about this before, is that not all emotional eating is bad. And people tend to see emotional eating or engage in emotional eating and start to panic as kind of, again, evidence that they've let themselves go. But if we were to look at the definition of overeating, or emotional eating, it's eating in response to emotions. And again, emotions aren't just always negative. So we'll eat for positive emotions. We'll eat to celebrate birthdays. We'll eat for special occasions. We'll eat because we're happy. And we would never look to that to be problematic. But when people engage in emotional eating to escape from negative emotions or a way of dealing with negative emotions, or if emotional eating after leads you to feeling negative emotions like guilt, shame, self-disgust, that's probably not a behavior that you want to engage in. And for most people, emotional eating serves as a coping mechanism, so a way of dealing with stress, life events, or uncomfortable emotions. In psychology, there are two approaches to coping mechanisms because, again, not all coping mechanisms are bad. So you have approach coping mechanisms. So these are kind of coping mechanisms that we'll engage in that can support us and that we can use to help us deal with these stresses and work through them. Versus if we have avoidance coping mechanisms, which is what most people use emotional eating as a way of dealing with, is we use this food to suppress our emotions or suppress the stress that we feel because we are able to, for some people, create a sense of physical disgust because you have this really gross, uncomfortable physical feeling of fullness, and as well the emotions that can create as well. So you can, rather than being stressed or anxious about your life, you can have a controlled response that you know how it ends when you overeat. So for example, you might feel like ashamed or defeated, but you know how those emotions feel. They are comfortable and they are safe, and it is not necessarily something that you enjoy, but emotional eating serves a purpose for you. And people, I think, often panic and think that they're broken when they engage in emotional eating. But this is a behavior that serves you to some degree, or else you would not engage in it. It might only serve you for a second, but for most people that emotionally eat to cope with stress or negative emotions, there is a point of release and your brain recognizes that. So when it comes to the same situation again, your brain remembers, oh, we normally emotionally eat to deal with this. And your brain, like a lot of people will say, I don't know why this keeps happening. It is because your brain is smart and your brain doesn't want to have to think about it. It doesn't nearly an automated response. So if you have no other coping mechanism for negative emotions, of course you will default to this. And the goal of working on your relationship with food or working on the need to emotionally eat, often it's just about bringing in other coping mechanisms, because it is okay to emotionally eat from time to time, even if it is in response to a negative emotion. If that coping mechanism is supportive for you in helping you get through a situation and does not leave you feeling worse after, it is technically an approach coping mechanism. But if it leaves you feeling worse or impacts your quality of life, or it is your only coping mechanism, it's probably not something that you want to engage in long term.
I'm going to bring up an example of a client that was struggling, because a lot of people like fall off and ghost you, like they ghost a coach and they won't come back to you because they keep falling into the same shame cycle. And I feel like needs to be spoken about more, because there is nothing wrong with you. There is nothing to fix. You aren't broken. And it makes me so emotional to talk about, because I hate seeing clients give up on themselves and then just fall off the planet and fall off the face of the earth, because I do see it often because of this shame. No matter how much you try to make them feel like they're heard, they're seen. If you compare that to the years and decades even prior to everything that accumulated to where they are now, with how they view themselves and how they respond to food, why they eat the way they do. Because it's not about what you eat, it's about why you eat the way you do. But back to this client and anyone that's in this situation, it's like you've been brought up with decades of being told to fit a certain mold, most likely, to look a certain way, most likely. But there's probably been some instances in maybe your family, your parents, or your friends where eating in a certain way was shameful, where eating out of this strict list of good and bad foods was shameful. So now you rebel to food all the time. And I know someone else who hated being told no. So she rebelled with food. And it's like there are so many ways that show themselves in the way that we eat and why we eat the way we do. But what stops people from leaning into this change? I know shame is a huge part of it, but I'm sure it breaks your heart as much as it does mine because we truly care about this stuff. How can we start to help foster this better relationship to be able to embrace this change and realize that there is no shame to feel here? But at the same time, there could be people that are so focused on how much they hate where they are right now, they can't possibly let themselves get worse, which I feel like there is actually a deeper reason, which is just like, I'm not comfortable. I have no belief that I can get to where I want to be because of these habits.
For me, I think with clients and people that struggle with their relationship with food and their relationship with their body, I think it's not about the belief that they can't change their body. I think it is because this kind of work is really difficult. And what a lot of people know is dieting and the dieting cycle, where they know probably not a long-term success, but I feel so uncomfortable that I just want to engage in this behavior for some sort of release, and I want to feel like I have control. And for most people, I think working on their body image and doing the line of work that I do in terms of building a relationship with food and challenging overeating is from the start of how you determine how you respond to setbacks. So for most people working on the relationship with food, or indeed anyone trying to change their behavior, you will probably fail. You will probably fail at the start and you will fail hard. So I think a lot of people feel like if they go back to their old coping mechanisms, so someone's working on the relationship with food and they want to move away from tracking, and then they have a day of tracking and then they kind of feel like, well, I'm back to square one, or I'm trying to work on my relationship with food, but yesterday I overate. This is proof I'll never get there. And then they kind of start to spiral because they have this perceived sense of failure. But in essence, you learn the most from these failures. And I would always tell my clients that you should expect to fail. And this doesn't necessarily mean that you are automatically going to fail or sack things off entirely. But if you are someone trying to work in a relationship with food, this is an incredibly difficult thing to do, particularly if you're someone that has struggled their entire life with emotional eating or the relationship with food or the relationship with their body. Chances are it will not be just linear and smooth sailing off into the sunset. So by creating a kind of sense that it is okay to fail, it is normal and it is expected, and rather than use this failure as evidence that you're never going to get there, it is proof that you are trying to change and there is a learning opportunity there. So rather than I failed, I'm never going to get there, it is okay, this didn't go well, why not? What can I learn and what can I bring in? And if I was in this situation again, what could I better do to support myself next time? So you're constantly creating this new pathway or this new alternative. And you have, I hate the phrase growth mindset because I think it's just been like weaponized by like bro coaches. But in essence, rather than seeing failures as this kind of fixed evidence that you'll never get anywhere, it is just simply a setback rather than a complete sack off, I suppose.
I actually like calling it an improvement mindset. It's kind of like growth phase. I hate that. Like in terms of muscle building, I hate bulk and I hate growth phase. It's more like, no, this is an improvement phase. This is a development phase. This is a building phase, because we're building more than a body. We're building your mindset. We're building your life up, because you can't focus on your life when you're focused on fat loss. And it's not saying like, yes, fat loss, it might be a part of your equation, and it most likely will be for so many people somewhere down the road, but it is like not the main event. It isn't like, it's not even something to think about until you've got yourself to a place that is accepting where you are now, building yourself up to ensure that you don't fall back into that cycle again, because it can be so easy, like you said, to rear its head again. But I wanted to say something there because you said something and I saw this in a book. The formula for success is quite simple. Double your rate of failure. And it's true, because if you're not going, you fail your way to success. It is hard to succeed at anything the first try. And if you look online, it looks like everyone's got it easy. They're like, I remember I think it's because of how shit I felt in the moment as well, and how lost I felt, and how incapable and hopeless and pathetic, so to speak, that I felt, that I was just like, why does everyone have their shit together? How can they eat that way? How can they train like that? And I had this realization the other day, oh my God, I'm actually like that person now. How did this happen? But this is the thing, like, it's something that is so possible for you, but it doesn't happen from forcing change. I had to let go of the fears of what if I end up blowing my macros at night. No, I need to allow myself to eat more in the day, to stop focusing on fat loss for a few years so that I can fix this shit that's keeping me stuck, because trying to force it harder was not working. And because I realized that, because of that awareness, because of I want to build my body, I don't want to keep wasting effort, wasting time. Like, I don't want to keep doing the same shit in 5 years' time and still wondering the same thing. I want to change. And realizing that is powerful, but also that it's not going to be a clean story. And we keep ourselves stuck. You can't read the label from inside the jar. And I feel like a lot of the time we don't even know what's keeping us stuck, which is where someone like definitely a coach, because a coach isn't a trainer. A coach is a coach. A coach guides you there. They hold your, not exactly hold your hand, but they're like your partner in this. They question you. They don't dictate to you. They try to elicit change from you, from asking the harder questions. Like, that is exactly what a coach should be, not these people heralding the term anyway. Because this shit is not easy. This shit is transformative. And for something to be transformative, wouldn't you expect it to be something that kind of uproots some things?
Yeah, definitely. And in terms of if you want to change your behavior or your relationship with food, and you're working with a coach that has you just tracking macros or tracking steps or tracking scale weight, that's all great. It's all like qualitative numerical data. It doesn't tell you a single thing about the journey or how you feel. So you need to be checking in with your feelings or kind of the emotions that arise up in you. If you want to change your behavior, you need to understand what causes it, first of all, and how you deal with it and how that behavior makes you feel. And that is probably the best way to start to instill change, is to be reflective, ask yourself the hard questions, sit with the uncomfortable feelings rather than just ticking things off and making sure that you're hitting your macros perfectly. Because again, times where I've quote unquote hit my macros perfectly or seen the scale weight go down have been times where I felt the worst about my body, or my relationship with food was in a terrible place. So if you want to change how you feel about your body, you need to be tracking how you feel. It's not just about macros. And indeed, I would say probably macro tracking, scale weight tracking, measurement tracking when trying to improve your relationship with food or your body is probably something you should not really be engaging in, because we know that having strict numerical targets is likely to lead to individuals viewing their behavior or themselves as good or bad. So this is where you'll get this kind of dichotomous mindset where it's either you're on or off a plan, or your body is either good or bad. And if it's bad, that is something that is quite fixed. So it's about moving away from, again, like with body image, it's about moving away from beyond, this is what my body looks like and it's good or bad. Same with your relationship with food, being like, this is what I eat, but this is what I've eaten today, it's either good or bad. It's about learning to live in the uncomfortable gray area. And that is something that is incredibly challenging about the work that we do. Simply because so much of the fitness industry and so many coaches, because again, that is all that they know. It's not a reflection on the coaches, it's a reflection on the education for coaches, will teach you that macro tracking is the only way and that food is only good or bad, because again, that is all that they know. And you can have a clear metric of what is quote unquote going to get you further or more away from your goals, versus when you're working on your relationship with food, when you're working on your relationship with your body, you probably don't have these clear numerical targets. And as a result, then people can start to panic because you're having these uncomfortable emotions. You're starting to question your behavior,
Thank you. I was like, thank you. Yes. I had actually quite a few clients. They're like, what the hell? Where do I put in my weight? Where do I put in this? Where do I put in that? I'm like, I don't track that stuff. But it's like, yeah, I need it as a baseline to start. I had one client say to me, I think it was 2 months in, she's like, holy shit, I was so stressed out about this and worried, and I thought that I could not make it through. But it was actually 5 weeks. It's been 5 weeks, and I feel like this huge weight is just not on me anymore. I don't have to do measurements every week. I don't have to send you my photos every week. I'm not stepping on the scale, and it's like, I feel good in myself. Like, I feel free, and it's hard to explain. I remember her saying it's hard to explain. I don't remember the rest of the message, but it was like this long thing. And I just remember that part because I keep sharing it. And this is the thing, like, it's uncomfortable because we don't know how we even feel anymore. We don't tune into our bodies because we're so, like, we've been taught to just go by numbers, and that should tell us how we feel. It's like, check in with this. Okay, cool. How adherent were you? Like, if you use one of those macro tracking apps, like, let's just say Carbon Diet, or I don't know, whatever one's out there. Every time you check in, you say, were you adherent to your macros? What's your scale weight? What's your estimated body fat percentage? That's it. And if you adhered, you get some macro adjustment or macro non-adjustment. If you didn't adhere, you get some other thing. And it's just based just off that. How is that going to get you to an outcome that you feel in control over? To me, that's an app controlling that. And it's something that just drives me nuts, because it's like, why are you eating the way that you eat? How do you feel? What is it that, like, what is the end outcome? What do you really want out of this? You want to feel good. You want to train hard so that you can build a body that you're proud of, not one that you're still going to keep beating yourself up with or beating yourself up. Like, the body that I have now, I'm actually proud of it because I'm building it, and it's with a different mindset. Whereas before, if I look at old photos, I could say that I had a much better physique. I built some stage trophy looking physique, but I don't relate to that anymore. Like, I can't even relate. It feels like another life story. It was from a different mindset. And I can definitely say that I was not living a quality life then. It was all I thought about. And food was not something I had a healthy relationship with either. I looked like I had a healthy relationship with food. I looked like I had all my shit together, but did I? No, I didn't. I pretended like I did, but I didn't. And most people that are doing that probably don't either. There are only a few people that subjectively see it as a sport, but it's like, is your life something that can facilitate that? Regardless, it's like, there was a post that you put up. So it's why I kind of want to tie this into that body image thing as well, because I kind of lost that train of thought, but I thought that was important to talk about. If your confidence is so tied to how you look, that's not going to lead to the outcome that you want either. Or that's the thing. I was focused on the health habits. That's not going to lead to the outcome that you want, because my confidence now isn't tied to how I look. It's tied to the fact that I show up for myself. I have I prioritize looking after myself every week, every day, in some way or another. I have my 1 hour of gym time. I have my 2 walks a day that usually averages about 1 to 2 hours. Take my dogs out, whatever. I have my walks there. But that is a priority every day, to get movement in. Why? Because it makes me show up better for other people. It gives me that confidence to show up for other people because I'm looking after myself. I have more to give to others. It's like, why are you doing what you do? What is it doing to benefit you and those around you? I don't think many of us stop to think about that, do we? And I think this can sort of tie into, if your confidence is tied to how you look, how do you expect that to go? And there was a post that you put up as well. There's 2. So maybe you can tie that aspect with these 2. 3 ways social media influences your body image. And the other one is trying to love your flaws is setting you up for failure. So those 3 type of concepts, I think, really work together well.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us put ourselves under extreme pressure, especially when it comes to working on our body or working on our relationship with ourselves, that, you know, that there'll always be parts of you that you are not necessarily the most in alignment with, or something that you're not the most satisfied with, I suppose is probably a better word. And so rather than, again, just trying to force yourself to just love every part of yourself and, you know, I'll stop comparing myself to other people on social media and just focus on myself and I'll never struggle with anything again, is complete BS. Like, it's never ever realistic, tangible takeaway here. And by trying to force yourself to love a part of your body that you really, really dislike, it's actually, you're like quite patronizing to yourself. And so the goal of working on your body image isn't necessarily to reach a state where you love every single part of your body and you never ever experience negative thoughts about your body, or that you accept every part of yourself unconditionally. It's about being able to live your life alongside these thoughts, so you can challenge these thoughts as well. So you might say, say if you've always disliked your stomach, so you might say, my stomach is disgusting. You might wake up in the morning and be like, oh, I just hate my stomach. So you still live your life. It doesn't affect you. You can see these thoughts for what they are, which are just thoughts. Thoughts are not facts. So you can wake up in the morning, even after you've been doing work on your body image for a long time, you will probably experience some of these thoughts from time to time. So rather than believing these thoughts or letting it take over your life, You see it for what it is, a thought, and you live your life anyway, rather than forcing yourself to, well, I shouldn't think like this and I should just love this part of my body. Shame is not an effective motivator for change, especially when it comes to body image work. So you can just say, okay, I'm not that comfortable in my stomach today, but I'm still going to show up for myself. I'm still going to nourish my body. I'm still going to move my body, not because I hate my stomach and I want to change it, but because it is normal for me to not like every single part of my body, but I'm still a person that is worthy of respect and a person that is worthy of being looked after. And that can be quite challenging in terms of social media, because social media is such a powerful influence on our body image, particularly if you're someone that follows a lot of quote unquote fitness accounts, because the majority of fitness accounts, because image or Instagram and TikTok, which would be kind of the two main social media platforms that most people would use, are image based. A lot of fitness content is geared around aesthetics and people showing off very lean bodies or transformation photos. And these things can lead to us comparing ourselves to other people. And because the biggest accounts or the biggest fitness accounts or the accounts that gets the most engagement on Instagram tend to be very lean bodies, this can also lead to us internalizing the belief that a fit body looks a certain way and that a quote unquote lean body or a fit body is the ideal way to have a body. And because we are hardwired to compare ourselves, because we feel like we don't have that kind of body, we start to pick ourselves apart and we start to feel worse about our own bodies. And also, it kind of goes without saying now at this point, but most of us are aware that social media is a highlight reel, but we very rarely stop and remind ourselves of that fact when we are caught up in this comparison. So you might look at, say, if you're a client, you might look at some of the fitness content online and say, God, I'll never, ever be able to look like that. When in reality, most of the fitness models or the influencers don't walk around looking like that either. And you also don't know what it takes for people to get there. If I was to post photos of the leanest I've ever been in my life, of course I would get more engagement. Of course I would get more people inquiring to work with me for fat loss. But it doesn't actually tell you about the journey that brought me there or what happened after. Like, I was very lucky when I did my shoot that I had a great coach that supported my relationship with food and my body. But I know I'm the exception and not the rule. And most people that have done preps, be that bodybuilding or shoots or any kind of extreme like summer shredding diet, has rebounded terribly and the relationship with food has suffered as a consequence. And also, I think for people to be mindful of, when you're looking at these influencers that seem to like have it all and they can eat whatever they want and not worry about what their body looks like. If you look at most fitness influencers from 10 years ago, they are all going on major podcasts now saying the time where they were at their leanest, they were struggling with eating disorders or really bad body image, or that they were on anabolic steroids. So it is important to be mindful of that, I think.
That's actually funny, because it's like now you don't see things aside from how you see them, if that makes sense. It's like you don't see them as they are, but as you see them, and what you see isn't even reality, which, as they're clearly admitting, and which I'm clearly admitting, like, it wasn't that way. And it's like, well, it was that way to me. It honestly was that way to me, because that was what I told myself. They're the stories I told myself. And I feel like that's why people keep themselves stuck as well, because the stories they tell themselves, they feel so true, and they refuse to challenge it because of that fear of letting themselves go as well. And also the fact that you are comparing your worst to their bests, and their bests are for likes, for engagement. And you're comparing them from a place of not being happy with yourself. And there was this point of time as well. I remember twice I sent my coach someone, this was way back in the years, someone saying goals. And they're like, what are you talking about? You do realize that you're in a better position than her. But I didn't see it. Like, I saw my body as in, like, you know what I'm trying to say? I like not trying to compare bodies, but that was where I saw myself. Like, we don't see ourselves as we are, as it is. And there was another case where it was like, this person had a whole lot more muscle mass. This person was 8 kilos heavier than me, but I didn't see that in myself. I just saw myself as feeling fat and fluffy, which is why this body image work is so important, because you don't even know where your bottlenecks lie until you know. And when you know, it's like, oh my God, like, I feel relieved. I feel free. Like, it is possible. Michelle is living proof of this. I'm living proof of this. She coaches people through this. And I would say, if you want to learn more about this stuff, I will put all the details below, and I'll explain that at the end of the podcast as well. But there is one more post that I wanted to dissect with you, because I love it, and it kind of factors into some stuff that I love from Shannon Beer as well, in the body image, in terms of not spiraling when you have a bad body image, but also a positive body image is not about pretending to love your body. But that's like, we have this want to change, which is why we have this insane focus on fat loss. The post that I'm talking about from you is the I ate a wall, and you're like, are you too desperate for fat loss? And that's kind of reiterating what I said before, where you can be so desperate for change that people, like especially menopausal women these days, they're preyed upon like crazy because of their own body. Like body dissatisfaction in menopause increases. And it's like, it wasn't bad enough. Now look at it. But this desperation leads to you being more vulnerable, but it just perpetuates the cycle. So I'm just going to let you take over because it's your post.
Yeah, and I suppose something I find, and that I found in my own experience, and basically the whole point of that post is not to highlight that wanting fat loss or being unhappy in your body is something that is inherently wrong, but it's more kind of when, or just a reminder to yourself that when you get into these kind of states, or the sense that my body is not good enough and fat loss will fix me, you are desperate in a sense, not in a negative way, but in a way that makes you vulnerable and likely to fall into, again, what we know that most people will engage in, which is crash dieting or immediately pursuing fat loss and believing that this time it's going to be different. And because you are so overwhelmed, you cannot think clearly. Like we were talking about at the start when we were talking about feeling fat, nothing I think about my body is true at this moment in time. And I'm probably not in the best position to make a rational decision about my exercise behaviors, my dietary behaviors, and my body. So rather than worrying about whether fat loss is going to be the thing that fixes you, I think for most people, if you could just take a step back about what it is that you actually want, and learning to tolerate distress, learning to tolerate body discomfort, or the sense that you're not 100% happy in your body, without immediately devolving into fat loss or these crash diets. Because if you want to go for a crash diet, or you want to immediately pursue fat loss without any consideration for your long-term health, there are, I'd say 75% of the coaches of the fat loss coaches on Instagram will do that for you, no problem. If you truly value yourself and you value long-term change, immediately defaulting to fat loss when things get tough is not the best way to do it. And because you are a person, again, and we've continuously reiterated throughout this podcast, regardless of the person that you are, you deserve respect, and your body deserves to be nourished and looked after. And for most people, the best way to nourish and respect yourself is not intentional pursuit of fat loss. The best way to improve your life is to not always change your body. What you should be focused on in terms of change, if you want to change your body, is change how you view it, rather than constantly be worrying about trying to change it physically to give yourself this kind of visible evidence that things are changing for you, versus working on your headspace, working on how you view food, how you nourish your body, why you nourish your body, and why it is important to nourish your body. These are all behaviors that will bring you closer to your goal, rather than just defaulting to fat loss. Because if you jump to fat loss, or you jump to dieting without changing your relationship with food or your relationship with your body, you are probably going to end up back where you started, because you are only carrying out behaviors because of how they impact your body. And when your body eventually changes, be that through hunger building up because you've been dieting for a long time, or because you're simply getting older, or things have changed for you and you've only been carrying out behaviors because they make you look a certain way, you are less likely to engage in them. And that's what we have seen in the research over time. People that engage in exercise or health eating behaviors for primarily appearance reasons are less likely to be adherent over time. So the best way for you to change your behaviors is change how you see yourself.
That last part, so powerful. Like, if like your body is going to change regardless of whether you like it or not, aging, whatever it is. And if you have not yet healed this, you are really setting yourself up for a hard time later on. And I love how we've ended with some takeaway behaviors. And there was one mantra that you mentioned, but I was wondering if we could end this podcast with a few takeaways for action steps that people can take, and mantras that people can kind of use when they're feeling either a negative thought come up about their body image. Because we know that we can't just chase fat loss for years on end. And most of the time it's that hyperfixation, that focus that has been holding us back this whole time. Like, we need to shift focus regardless of whether we still have fat to lose or whatever story you tell yourself. It isn't serving you right now. So changing is going to bring discomfort. what are some mantras and some strategies in a short clip to end this that the audience can take away?
So I think, again, it's about working on long-term strategies and then in the moment strategies, and the two obviously are separate. So in the moment, I would say, again, when you're dealing with body dissatisfaction, is to remind yourself that you're probably not thinking objectively at the minute. So again, that mantra of nothing I think about myself at the moment is true. That can be a great way to kind of help you start to challenge this behavior, or even just notice it occurring. And then long term, I think for most people is probably about getting clear about your values and what you want from life. And that can help you become a little bit more critical about the approach. So for example, if you're someone that just wants to be able to eat a balanced diet and doesn't want to be able to think about food so much, tracking calories is probably going to bring you further away from that. And that's when you'll start to feel that kind of icky sense of this doesn't sit in alignment with my values. So when you're clear about what you want, that can help guide how you act. And I think that's probably the best way to do that.
When you're clear about what you want, that can guide how you act. But what you want isn't something you can just say so vaguely. Like, actually visualize it, get clear on it. And something Michelle said there, which, do you have anything on it that I could guide them to as well for values? Because the value setting is actually really important. I do have my own as well, but in case you had anything as well that I could guide them to, I'll put it down in the podcast notes below. I got your Instagram there. It's Michelle Carroll 1 on Instagram. Is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners, and anything around values?
Yeah, so I'll always get my clients when they first start working with me to fill out, like, I have a values worksheet. But in essence, if you're just at home, it is what's important to me, what does my life currently look like, and where do I see myself? So it's kind of the classic job interview question of where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? And what does your life currently look like now versus what does your ideal life look like? So for most people, it is they want a life that is family, social life, successful career, fulfilling life, versus now it's gym, thoughts about their body, body dissatisfaction. So that is where you will see the shift, or what people need to move towards. And when you see that the ideal life that I want doesn't necessarily sit, or doesn't really look like the life that I have now, you can start to move the needle in the right direction for the life that you want.
I love that. I'm going to try to make that a clip, because that bit right there, honestly, do it, pause, like actually take the time, like sharpen your axe so that you only have to hit that tree once, not just keep whacking at it and give up because your axe is blunt. Where can they find you? I have it below. I said it already, but I want you to plug yourself here and let them all know where they can find your amazing stuff, because I honestly feel like I said, I share your stuff to my girls themselves and I share it to so many people. It is so valuable. I want people to follow you. Where can they find you?
Best place to get me is probably Instagram. That's at Michelle Carroll 1. I also have a website, so that's michellecarrollfitness.ie, where I run a course about disordered eating for coaches that want to become more comfortable and confident dealing with relationship with food and body image issues. And I also run a paid newsletter called Body Image and Nutrition Review, which is on Substack, which is where we'll review studies, body image studies, eating behavior research for coaches, what each study means and how it can impact our coaching practice, if it does at all. So I'm kind of kept busy.
Definitely. Research reviews aren't easy to do, but the fact that there's a lot of research on this stuff shows just how important this stuff is. So with that, I thank you so much for coming on, and I hope you guys got a lot out of this. Replay the last 5 minutes, because it could honestly change your life. This stuff is transformative, but realize that transformative things are meant to uproot you. You can't want a different outcome being rooted in the same place. And you're not a tree either. Like, you can move. So with that, bye.